So you guys, we're going to talk about writing tonight. We're going to talk about essays tonight. We're going to actually get to read some essays. I'm going to let you look and see what some of your colleagues, what choices your colleagues made, and we can certainly consider why that happened. We can talk about why that happened, what choices they made, um, and the like. Let's see here. Okay, I think you guys can see my screen, right?
Yep. Yeah, we can see the whole PowerPoint.
Yeah. This is a weird version of the slide deck, but I have dual monitors, and because I'm using PowerPoint and Adobe, um, the Adobe Acrobat for PDF, I'm going to do it this way tonight. So hopefully this is fine. So again, welcome. Thanks for having me. Glad to be back. This is the fun night of the two. I think it's less sort of just information, and really this is the night when we sort of are creative, we get to think, we get to talk about fun things. At the end of the evening, you guys will spend some time in smaller groups having really good conversations with your group leaders about your homework assignment that I know you all did, which is really great. We're going to talk about that a little bit as well, but I'm going to try to have us wrap up no later than 7:15 or 7:30, so that there's actual time to go into, you have good amount of time to spend in the breakout sessions. So let's talk about writing. And this is what we're going to do. This is kind of an outline, but let's talk about writing first and foremost. If we were in person, I would ask you, so who likes to write? And then a lot of times people don't know what to do with that question. So I will then sort of back up and say, well, who likes to talk? And I think a lot of times people that like to talk don't realize that they would probably be really good writers, or that they are good writers, or that they would love or like or love to write. It's almost like making too much of a commitment. We're all a little shy about that, but I do think that writing and talking are really related and important. I made some notes here about just talking about writing, and specifically writing for admissions, because there's different kinds of writing. You guys learn to write in English class in high school in a certain way that is appropriate for the classroom setting at that point in your educational your educational trajectory. There are different kinds of writing, though. There's newspaper writing, there's journaling, there's scientific writing. I have a good friend who's doing a PhD in mathematics here at Cornell. The way he writes is beyond me, and I am a writer, but scientists have different ways of communicating, their methodology and their work and how they solve problems. So writing is just a big thing. There's just so many things, so many different things to a lot of different people. And sometimes, writing functions as a way for us to do certain things, exchange, create imagery, declare meaning, enable understanding. This is also true for what's happening in the writing that you do for the admissions committee, people that you do not know, people that you won't get to meet, you won't get to talk to them. You basically got to write for them, and imagine writing for them is like talking to them. That's probably how I would want you to sort of be thinking about this particular exercise, and to sort of really invest yourself in it, your time in it. In admissions, you are definitely telling us who you are, and I have a document I want to sort of show you really quickly here. That's actually from our friends at the Common Application. You guys probably all remember that Cornell uses the Common Application, as do several hundred other schools. But they talk a lot, this handout, I think you might have it, but it's really quite great. Telling your story, how to approach the essay. They give some really good advice in this that I think mirrors what I would say, and perhaps what I've already been saying. And I love the fact, I think I shared this with you, Wave. If I didn't, I will correct my error. But this is actually a really great document that you can use to do the homework assignment, to do it, to, you know, to do the homework assignment again. By the way, that assignment is one that you should sort of go back to. Not just, you shouldn't just sort of think about doing that just for the purposes of this workshop. But those questions and that sort of guiding of your own brainstorming and ideas is really very important. Again, on the way to creating an outline, on the way to actually putting something down and committing to an official response that is representative of you in the way that you want to be known and to be thought of and seen. But I do love the advice that the Common App gives in this handout. Um, and they sort of do this along with talking about the essay prompts as well, which I think is really awesome. They sort of give you a little bit of, I would call these guideposts, really, in a way. They sort of help you think about and ask yourself about questions. Some of the questions I think I mentioned on Tuesday, you know, what's missing from the rest of my application, or these questions are a part of the document that you received from me. What makes you proud? And so, and I did look at this before I typed that other document out. Else I wouldn't have given you the other document. I would have just given you this. This is actually so good. And I found this right on the Common App website. But I love how they sort of give you some things to think about as you're considering each question that is a part of the Common App. And we're going to actually look at these questions later on, but you know, it's the same sort of thing. It's like, you know, first start off imagining what it is you'd like to convey. What is it you want people to know about you? This notion of storytelling is it is real. It's important. It's really the best way to think about what it is you need to do. But we won't get to meet you, as I mentioned last time. You won't get to meet us. There's a lot of information, but I would say most admissions officers are more interested in who this person is. You know, first we have to make sure that the work is doable, that you're ready for the academic classroom research learning experience. But beyond that, and most of our students are ready for all of that, we want to know, who is this person? What are your aspirations, your dreams, your goals? You know, how do you see things? How do you understand things? How do you relate? How do you respond? We get a lot of information, believe it or not, from the words that you use, the essays that you write, how you tell your own story. We talked a little bit about voice and perspective on Tuesday, just a little bit, but your background, your experience, your convictions, your leanings, your uncertainties, your questions, we don't expect you to know everything. None of us know everything. But we expect that if you're looking to apply to college, you want to learn about something or some things. So, you know, we're trying to sort of understand a lot about you. How do you think? What motivates you? You know, what captures your imagination, your attention? You know, what are your observations on yourself, on your community, on the world? You know, what's the outlook? What outlook do you have? You know, are you excited for the future? Is the future daunting? You know, we want to know all those things. It's, you know, we're not therapists. Don't think that. This is not what this is. We're just trying to get to know you through your own words, through your own story. And those questions that you received, much like the questions I just showed you that are included in the Common Application handout, those are really guiding questions. They really are meant to help you sort of think. And sometimes when I'm just doing stream of consciousness work or just thinking, and you know, the goal is to just sort of to empty, you know, just to sort of empty out. You know, sometimes it's good to just sit down with a piece of paper and, you know, a thought or some sort of motivating direction, like this question here: what makes you proud? um you know, probably what makes you all proud, and it's probably a lot of things. What makes me proud? I like it when I do a good job. I like it when it's noticed that I've done a good job. I am proud of my staff when they do extraordinary things that I have had nothing to do with. I'm so proud for them and proud of them. So like making, you know, making these lists and sort of putting this down, this is the sort of these are the building blocks, if you will. This is the foundational stuff that you will want to have as you respond to questions, particularly I would say particularly with the personal statement, the essay that is truly about you. We're going to talk about that in a second. Sometimes though, I mean, not even sometimes, some of the other questions that you all received were intentional about getting you to think deeply about writing about your academic interests, your interest in a particular major, or program or college, what have you, just because you'll want to do that same kind of brainstorming and really sort of creating a little bit of an outline, or just a sort of repository of things I'd like to convey, things I'd like for the committee to know about me, things I'd like to say. Um, I know a lot of students don't use note cards nowadays, or maybe they do, but I remember this whole process reminds me of when I used to write papers in school, and I would use note cards, because we didn't have all this fabulous technology, and everything's electronic now. We didn't have all that. So the note cards really ended up being the thing that I use to sort of, these are the quotes I want to insert into the paper I'm writing, and I'm going to paraphrase this, and I'm going to direct quote this, and then here are my ideas, and then here's my outline. You're basically doing the same thing. You're putting together a story. The story is, of course, about you in this case. It's not a paper about someone else, something else. You want to be analytical about you and about what it is you want, what you see that you want at an institution. Perhaps it's Cornell. We hope it might be. Perhaps it's somewhere else. Writing is definitely hard. It is definitely hard, and it takes time. You're going to see in some of the examples I'm going to show you that a lot of students um, don't commit the time to the effort that needs to be committed. And sometimes that happens because you're nervous about it. Writing is daunting. If you do some of the pre-work that I'm talking about here and that you're going to practice later on, I think that'll actually help make it less daunting and less hard. And you will find that, just like with the note cards, when I would sort of, I want to, these are all the things I think I'm going to use. You start with a lot and then you pare down from there. So I really do think that the pre-work is important. You've got to be committed to this effort, because again, this is it. The application is how we get to know you. The writing is really how we get to know you. So I've talked about what I will call, for this moment and effort, the order of operations. First, you really do need to sit down and uh, you know have ideas, brainstorm. Just think about yourself. One of the not even one of the best part of this process of applying to college, I think, is the fact that you are forced to get to know yourself. You are forced to dig deeply and look inside yourself and see what motivates you and see what you're about. You are forced to sort of ask yourself questions that you've probably never had to ask yourself before, because somebody else is asking this question vis-a-vis an admissions application. And that will continue. But I think that this moment is where the ice gets broken on this idea of knowing yourself and knowing what motivates you, and thinking about what it is you truly want. What is it you want to do? What excites you? I mean, you're not going to have this moment ever again. So absolutely don't waste it. In terms of like thinking about what it is you want to do. And if that involves college, excellent. Let's assume it does, because you're here. You're going to need to sort of convince some folks that don't know you that they should have a spot for you. And that's a pretty serious thing that definitely demands commitment. You've got to demonstrate you're ready. You've got to demonstrate that you're ready to be a member of an intellectual community, um, and an even sort of broader social, community that has other attributes as well. And of course, that information comes across not only in your essays, but in the rest of your application. So, all right, next slide. So, personal statement. Let's just sort of make sure that we're all on the same page about what is what. The personal statement is about you. It is your voice, it is your perspective. It's really your way to introduce yourself. The personal statement should be really focused on communicating who you are. This is your moment to pitch yourself. I often say to sort of draw a line, if you can, in sort of between the personal statement, and in Cornell's case, because we do have an interest statement, the interest statement. And what I mean by that is focus the personal statement on introducing, describing, displaying, demonstrating, talking about you. Tell us about you. We want to know what you care about, what matters to you, what upsets you, what you like, what you don't like, how you see the world, what is the world to you? I mean, those are the kinds of questions. They're big questions. You can't answer all of them, so you have to choose. But those are the kinds of questions we want to sort of have answered as you're responding to the prompt for the personal statement. And again, that Common App document that I have open on my second screen here has the prompts on the one side, and then it has the guiding questions for you to brainstorm ideas, then make your outline, and then move to the point where you start drafting a response to the question. That is the order of operations, best way to do it. Personal statement is about you, and more you. If your personal statement is about grandma, your mom, your dad, your brother, your cousin, your favorite teacher, your favorite movie, it's fine to reference those individuals sparingly. But that personal statement needs to be about you. We all love a good metaphor. This is not the time to have someone stand in and be you. This is the time for you to be you and to talk about you and to not have the mirror up for someone else to sort of say, this person is me, because when I see them in the mirror, I see myself. We want to know about you, and it's best to not use other people to reflect too much who you are in this particular case, because what ends up happening is it's a trap. You end up talking about this other person so much that you love and adore and admire that you forget that you're not actually talking about yourself. You're talking about this other person. And we can imagine that, but we want you to talk about yourself and not the other person. And so avoiding the metaphor, the extended metaphor, as much as you can. This person has inspired me to become the person I am. Tell us about the person you are. Focus a little less on how they inspired you. Um, if you can see what I'm getting at. So show us what it is we're trying to see. Now, the supplemental essays, those are typically interest essays, essays that Cornell only has one supplemental essay. Some institutions have many of them, and some institutions also have short answer essays as well. And these are really about getting to know you beyond perhaps beyond the personal statement, beyond beyond the strictures or the format or frame of the personal statement. So the personal statement is going to you're going to decide what you want it to be, how you want it to how you want it to happen, and what it's going to say about you. Oftentimes supplemental essays are meant to take you out of this space where you're perhaps locked down and really focused on your outline and communicating your points. And sometimes schools want to know what you like to do for fun, what brings you joy. Sometimes they'll ask you questions that you're not even expecting to be asked. Again, these would be the short answer questions. Some schools just do this because they want to kind of throw a curveball at you and see how you respond. I'm thinking of the University of Chicago has great essay questions that do this, for which there is no answer. And sometimes the brainstorming is actually what makes the essay entirely. A question from U Chicago that I recall was, how do you feel about Wednesdays? So what do you write to respond to that question? And Cornell doesn't have a question like that, because that kind of stuff hopefully goes into your personal statement. If you want to show us that you're funny or that you're quirky or that you have a sense of humor, only if you are those things and have those things, or that you're super serious, or that you wrote a book by the time you were 10 years old, whatever it might be. Cornell would expect that to be in your personal statement, but UChicago asks these other questions. They call them uncommon questions because they are uncommon, and they're meant to kind of, and other schools do this too. Some schools have supplements where there are lots of questions. What is your favorite color and why? What does that have to do with college or going to college? They're just trying to see what you're like. What are you like beyond the surface? What are you like beyond the seriousness of purpose that you've hopefully brought into the application process all on its own? How do you respond to the unexpected? I mean, that could actually be a question that they ask you. Another question, and I actually like this question because I think that UChicago should give me credit for this question, because if you worked closely with me, you would know that I actually have a saying, a mantra of sorts, within my office that I've been saying to people for almost 20 years. But the UChicago question is, there are two types of people in the world. Describe those two types of people and tell us which one you are. So so again, people that work with me, they and when I saw this, I was like, oh, that is my question. That's not even my question. I mean, the answer is what I say all the time. There are two types of people in the world. I won't talk about that now, but I mean, what a great question to ask someone, because as we all know, there are more than two types of people in the world. But UChicago has just asked you to categorize people in two really large groups and tell them what the groups are while you decided on that. I mean, that sounds like fun, but it also sounds like, to some people, it could be really tedious to do that. We're all different. Some of us like to have fun and curveballs thrown, and some of us are a little bit more serious, and that kind of outing may be a little less fun. So anyway, there are different types of essays that are looking for different types of responses, and you want to keep that in mind. Again, we've talked about a lot of this: unique voice, worldview. What are we looking for? Genuine interest, authenticity, answer to our questions. Why us? Why now? Why this program? Why this institution? Your understanding of things, and the understanding of things and your fit are actually conveyed through the research that you do, and what you decide to include in the writing that you submit related to the research that you've done on the institution, comparing what's offered at this school, what's available at this school, the community at this school, having that sort of map up against or match up against who you are, what you want, what you're looking for. So we're looking to sort of see if have you done the research, have you done the analysis, and you want to convey that in your writing. We're looking for that articulation, very important. Ideas, perspectives, that's really important. I included some inclusions that I think are really important. Context. Context is really what this is all about. We want to know your context probably as much as we want to see your transcript. Those two things, I think, in parallel together, um, really sort of, that begins our process. Your context and your transcript. That's where this work starts. That's where we start considering how we start considering candidates. I think we also want to see courage and resilience. And that's not because we think that everyone has to have struggled in order to know how to survive. That's what happens, and that's wonderful. I think what we're looking to see, though, is with courage and resilience, are you going to be able to manage setbacks? How strong are you? I mean, that's what we're looking to see, because going to a university like this one that is super difficult, it's super fun, but it's not easy. It's and that's fine. That's the Cornell experience. It is a rigorous experience. If you were a straight A student in high school, and a lot of you probably are or will be, um, you know, you might get your first B, C, or a D when you get to a college like this. So how do you respond to that? I mean, we're trying to figure that out when we read your application. Like, and sometimes your high school doesn't set you up for doesn't truly set you up for the rigorousness of the experience at a university like Cornell. So we're also again trying to assess courage and resilience, and you know, how you managed with what you had, and how you might manage, seek out, and find support for what you would have were you a student here. Character is very important. Character is, it's, we could spend a whole hour talking about what that means, and but it's very important to us that that the kinds of students that come to a place like Cornell recognize the responsibility that they have as a learner, as a member of the community, the responsibility they have to respect others while they're learning and while they're a member of the community, and the expectation that you're not just going to respect and tolerate, but we purposefully bring a whole lot of people to this campus who are very different from each other. We create this, there's this intentional polyphony, antiphony, this, we're doing this on purpose because we feel like in that moment where everything is so different, that's where real learning happens. This person learns from that person, learns from that person, learns from that person, because our backgrounds are different, our experiences are different, our lenses are different, the way we see things, the way we say things, the way we communicate things. All of that stuff is really important. That will build your character, continue to build your character. But I think we want to make sure that the right kind of individual is coming to us and is ready for the freedom and the responsibility of being a student here. And then certainly capability. We want to see what you can do. We want to see how you can grow. We want to see what you've already done. We want to see what it is you want to learn and know. So these are things that we're looking for in the essays, and it's really important to communicate those. Answer the prompt, you know, tell us what's unique or important to you. You've got to write well, you've got to proofread. You really want to be thoughtful about this process, and adhere to space constraints, the details, the word counts, the word limits. Remember your audience too. You don't know these folks you're writing to, but they want to know you, and so you just have to worry about the one side of it. It's kind of interesting. It's like, normally if you're in a social setting, you've got to kind of it's a sort of situation where there's action and response, and there's negotiation happening sort of in the moment on both sides. In this case, all you have to do is to represent yourself, talk about yourself, tell us what's going on with you. What are you thinking about? What do you think about us or the school you're applying to? Have that purpose and intent and show it to us. It's, in some ways, it sort of it relieves you of the pressure of needing to kind of worry so much about us, when you can just worry about making sure that you display, you demonstrate, you communicate as much about yourself and who you are and who you know yourself to be at this point in time, while answering the prompt. The prompts are really interesting. So let's look at some of the prompts. We talked about this. Your essays need to be your own voice. They need to focus on you, not someone else. You want to avoid being offensive, rude, intolerant. You really don't know who's reading the essay. Being controversial is often fine, but you have to really make sure that in doing so, it's relating to you, or to the story you're telling about you, or to your context, or to your purpose or intent in applying. I mean, we could come up with some sort of reasons for that choice. Your essays should not feel inconsequential. They matter a whole lot. They've got to matter to you. That's the only way you're going to do a good job on them, if they matter to you. And I think that all of us want to represent ourselves as well as we can, regardless of the audience. We want people to sort of see who we are and see the best in us. And so do that, show them that, tell them that this is your chance. Make sure you proofread, make sure you revise it. You're going to see some examples here in a second where that was not the case. So these are the Common App prompts, and we're actually going to take a look at some essays that go over these. I believe that you have a handout with these on it. The last prompt I just want to point out, share an essay on any topic of your choice. You are free. You can write about anything you want. If you don't like the first 6 prompts, you are free. You are free to do everything we have just talked about, and you can even get rid of the prompt and not worry about the prompts above 1 through 6 if you don't like them, and still follow the guidance that we've just been talking about in terms of making sure you communicate who you are, your purpose, your intent, and why your application is in front of the people it's in front of. And then, of course, Cornell has interest essays. You also have these as well. So this is by college. And again, you would want to do the same exercise where you do a little bit of brainstorming, thinking of ideas. This is about, what do you want to include? That's about you. That's about the institution or what you know about the institution, leading up to on the way to making an outline and then starting to draft. Drafting does not, you're not going to write this thing in one sitting. You're going to have to write drafts and write and get started. Sometimes it's really great to, after you do the outline, to write topic sentences. Think about the structure of what you want to communicate. And by me suggesting structure, that doesn't mean that what you write to us can't be one long paragraph. It could absolutely look like that. Your English teacher is going to be mad at me for saying that. But anyway, we have some students that send us poetry. It's really good poetry, but they send us poetry. We do have some students that write one long paragraph. One really short paragraph is a bad thing to do, but one long paragraph is going to be fine. So I'm going to unshare this and let's look at some examples. All right. Okay, great. I'm a pro at Zoom at this point and sharing screens. So proud of myself. I selected a couple of students and we're going to look quickly. We're not going to try to sort of evaluate or analyze in too much detail what they've done, but we're going to talk about what they've done because I think you can see some things immediately. So this is Dallas's Cornell interest essay, the writing supplement. So this is the second essay. The personal statement is coming up in a second. But just looking at this, so this is his statement for the College of Arts and Sciences. You have 650 words at your disposal. So this is what the students submitted. This is an essay that is one paragraph. Now, mind you, it is a longer paragraph in terms of the number of sentences. But in my mind, if I saw this as an admissions officer, the length of it is jarring because it makes me think, wow, did this person not want to use the rest of the space that they had? Surely, applying to Cornell University's College of Arts and Sciences, you have more to say than what is here. But that doesn't mean we don't read what is here. So interestingly enough, due to my interest in tribal politics and the legal field, so we are getting immediately the details, the kinds of details that you would want to make sure you include, in spite of my unhappiness, the reviewer's unhappiness with the length of this, perhaps the amount of time committed. And by the way, this student did not finish the application process at Cornell and is not a student here. So it's entirely possible that this is the way it is because we weren't this student's first choice. And we were sort of an add-on. That happens. There are many great schools out there. But yeah, tribal politics, legal field, wants to major in history as an undergraduate, wants to expand on his understanding of the nation-to-nation relationship between the United States and Native American tribes. Understanding of tribal sovereignty will give me a solid foundation to build upon during law school. I mean, this is really interesting. So I'm going to read this one single paragraph, and I'm probably going to get to at the end of it and go, I wanted to know more. I wish he had written more. Dallas is probably doing amazing things somewhere else, no doubt, and clearly has direction, purpose. But my advice to you is don't submit an essay like this that would appear. It appears that he didn't want to spend much more time than this on this essay. That's how it appears. And I've read this before, and there's lots that's missing here. Absolutely a lot that's missing. This is Dallas again. So this is the statement that's about Dallas. what motivates him, what's his story, what's his background, what's his context, what does he care about. So he talks about being an enrolled member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, federally recognized tribe that resides in Cherokee, North Carolina. This is great. This is actually certainly the better of the two. I mean, already I know a lot about him, and making this choice and starting off with this, it's a great choice. It's really all we can ask of you is to tell us who you are. Tell us where you live. What does it look like in your neighborhood? What's it like to be you? What's your life like? The admissions committee is just trying to get to know you. And you learn a lot about Dallas in this essay. Very, very interested in tribal government, which is, relates to his being pre-med and wanting to you know, sort of have this kind of back and forth, if you will, perhaps as his future career, between, the nation to nation perspective, looking at two worlds perhaps that have collided, and going from there. It's really, I mean, this is a really personal sort of thing that Dallas is embarking on. He's applied to the College of Arts and Sciences. He wants to study history. So this is a very personal thing that Dallas has embarked on. Wants to be a public servant. Um, and so he talks about that. Public and community service is an integral part of who Cherokees are as a people. I mean, that's the kind of stuff we want to know. That's the kind of stuff we want to know. All right, enough about Dallas. You guys can see he was also not afraid to communicate his identity and to talk about that. Don't assume we know. Don't assume the admissions officers know what it's like to be you. Just because we have a program at Cornell doesn't mean all the people that read applications here know all the work that's happening with the American Indian program here at Cornell. They might know it's a part of the history, but it doesn't mean they know your experience, your identity, if it means a lot to you. I think I showed you on Tuesday that some students are enrolled and some students are not enrolled. That's fine. That's just a product of the United States and living in the places that we all live, and how lives happen. I mean, it's not like you the students have made those choices or predetermined that. But when you talk about things, that's how we know they mean something and they matter to you, that they're a part of your world. Perhaps you can't imagine them not being a part of your world. That's the kind of stuff we want to hear about. So this is Robert. Robert applied to the Dyson School, one of our accredited undergraduate business programs at Cornell. And this is his interest statement. I want to attend Cornell because of its accounting program. Accounting is one of the 10 to 12 specialty areas within the Dyson program in the College of Business. So this is interesting. He's actually already as well talking about graduate studies, so the Masters of Professional Studies. He's also talking about the MBA. And so I guess he's trying to communicate that the program is dynamic. The College of Business brings together undergraduate and graduate studies. Maybe he's imagining as an undergraduate, he might have access to the things that are coming for him down the road. Being an accountant at a big accounting firm, developing an entrepreneurial spirit, and having access to courses and people to deepen his understanding. Okay, that's great. He then talks about the accounting, a specialization, which is again one of the programs. Talks about what he wants to learn. Talks about the classes he's going to take. He's got passion for performing and learning music theory and composition. My undergrad degree is in music theory and composition. So that's really interesting to me. Like, he's talking about opportunities at Cornell beyond the major, beyond the college, how he's going to create his academic experience. This all makes sense in this particular essay because this is what we're looking for. This is the kind of stuff we want to see. He's clearly done some homework on what the possibilities are here at Cornell, specifically in terms of you know, the opportunities to learn and study even beyond business. So this is really going well so far. You know, and by the way, um, an essay might be really good to one person, but it may not be as good to another person. Oftentimes, that's not because of the content. That's oftentimes because of the presentation. And so that's why I think it's really important to worry less about the presentation and to worry more about the content and the flow and the telling of your story. And if you're telling a story, you don't need to repeat the beginning of the story. I know that for some high school writing, they have you recapitulate, you know, your thesis at the end. I've proved my thesis, what I had to say in 5 paragraphs. You don't have to do that when you're telling a story. A story has a beginning and an ending. You have to pick the ending. That's why this moment, this writing moment, is a little bit different and perhaps a whole lot harder because you've not really had to sort of do this before. But you haven't applied to college before either, so it's all kind of interesting and new, and really just about sort of becoming comfortable with what the process looks like and what it is you need to do to sort of to increase your chances of success and certainly feeling good about the process. I feel like for those of you who've written, I know a lot of you have written papers before, and you know that feeling you get after you've written a paper and you know that was a really good paper. I did my best. I know I did my best. That's the kind of feeling, you know, regardless of the grade that you might get, because there are always technicalities and things that you can do better, right? But that feeling is what you want to leave this moment with when you're communicating again with people you don't know about something that's really important to you. You want to leave that moment, leave the essays, either one of them, or even the small essays, you know, when they ask you, what do you think about the color orange? You're like, does it matter? I mean, they could actually ask you a question like that. Does the color orange matter? You know, it's not a part of the spectrum. It's not a part of, you know, or maybe it is. You know, it's just one of those questions again that can kind of throw you off. But you just want to make sure you leave the moment feeling like I did my best, and you know, I really sort of put myself out there. I think we also want you to kind of extend yourself a little bit and not be afraid to do so, because once you get in a classroom on this campus, you know, you're kind of on your own. You've got to hold, you've got to hold court and be who you are, you know, and that's expected, that's anticipated, that is desired. So we want to make sure that that person who is lively and has much to contribute is amongst those we're considering offering admission. All right, let's look at another essay. The prompt he chose was, the lessons we take from obstacles we encounter can be fundamental to later success. Recount a time when you faced a challenge, setback, or failure. This question is the one that I worry about. I worry that it sends a message that you have to have had something awful happen to you to be the amazing person that you are. That's not true. This question also makes me worry and concerned because sometimes students think, well, I got to answer that question because otherwise the admissions committee won't think that won't be as interested in me if I haven't overcome something. We are looking for a lot of different kinds of people, and one thing we know is that everybody has obstacles. Everybody has overcome something. Everybody has a hard life. Life is just hard in different ways for different people. So you don't have to have something, you know, you don't have to have something like a failure or a setback that is the thing about you that sings the loudest. It doesn't have to be that way. If it is that way, I mean, I can think of a couple of people that I know, their tragedies have really sort of basically they've had a hold of them since they happened, and they really do motivate a lot of what happens with those individuals. One of them happens to be my sister, who lost a child. And so, you know, that's fine too. If that's who you are, all you have to do is to communicate who you are. You don't have to be someone else. Just tell your story. So this is the question about obstacles. How did it affect you? What did you learn from the experience? We're not going to necessarily read through this whole thing, but I will say that the most important part of this particular Common App personal statement question is the last part. What did you learn? Remember resilience, remember courage. What's the transformation? How are you different? How are you going to be different? How are you going to, in my sister's case, how are you going to get out of this space of feeling that the world is not fair, and that, life doesn't feel good, and you are missing a child that you love so much? How do you get out of that? How are you going to find your way back to whatever, whatever space you find your way back to? But what's your method for coping? What's your method for trying to understand and to grow, to be better, to feel better, etc.? That's really the last part of this question. That is the most important part, because essentially the first part of the question, you are recounting something that has already happened. Remember earlier when we were talking about not focusing this essay too much on someone else or something else, and that it needs to be about you? This essay, in terms of being successful, later success, that's really what this essay needs to be about. If you spent, let's say this were a 5-paragraph essay, if you spent the first 3 paragraphs describing the incident, you have wasted valuable space. We want to know less about the actual incident and more about your response to it, more about how it transformed you, how it changed you, how it impacted you, how it made you different, better, stronger, wiser, etc. Let's see here. So this is a human ecology response. And I include this because I wanted to mention the College of Human Ecology. I think some of you guys remember that I said on Tuesday that it was my favorite college at Cornell. All the colleges are my favorite. What I actually majored in when I was in college would be found in the College of Arts and Sciences. So I guess by definition, my favorite colleges are actually the College of Human Ecology and the College of Arts and Sciences, but they're all really interesting. And I used to work in the College of Engineering, and I loved the engineers. So maybe I don't really have a favorite, but this question is interesting, because it really does, it does get at, and the question itself is something akin to, how has your decision to apply to the College of Human Ecology been influenced by your related experiences? How will your choice of major impact your goals and plans for the future? And so I wanted to sort of bring this up so you could take a look at it really fast. Read the first paragraph there, or farther if you get a chance. Perfect. I know you guys aren't done, but we're gonna keep going. So this student is interested in medicine, is interested in health and well-being, cancer research. There was an event, witnessing the loss of a classmate's sister, that perhaps triggered or sort of further strengthened this particular interest. This student wants to change the world, and efforts to do so will begin with Cornell University. I mean, this is the kind of essay that you should be writing to the College of Human Ecology. Remember, it's a place that's looking at policy, health, well-being, and sort of and science and applied social science, and the intersection of all of those, and looking at the various lenses, using the various lenses to evaluate disease and illness and those kinds of things. This student is the kind of student that should be applying to human ecology. This is the kind of essay they're expecting to see. This is one of the kinds of essays they're expecting to see for sure. This student probably applied to human biology, health, and society, which a lot of students do within the College of Human Ecology, on the way to medical school. But there's information here about involvement, research, and policy, and it's really very interesting. This student is really dynamic and has a lot to offer. I mean, this is a really good essay. We're not going to be able to read all of it, but I read it earlier today, and this last paragraph is really interesting to me. So the student doesn't want HBHS. That's right. The student wants policy analysis and management. But it's interesting because the first part of the essay, you might think differently. And what this student probably knows is that the way that science and well-being and all of that is integrated in human ecology happens in such a way that this space could really be the kind of home where this student ends up majoring in more than one thing within human ecology, or at least having access to areas of interest and of study within this college that are already on this person's mind and that already appeal to the person. So we have a College of Engineering. These are the students that love math and science and technology, and that sort of they're just sort of often on their often on their own doing amazing things already, a lot of them. So this student wants biomedical engineering. Really interesting. That's a program that hasn't been around for too long at Cornell, for good reason. We changed our minds and now it's a major and not a sort of not just a PhD program. So the student talks a little bit about a hereditary disease. That tends to happen with students that want to study medicine, healthcare. There's something that led them to this choice. We want to know what that is. We want to hear about that. Not too much about that, but we want to hear about it. We also want to hear, in this particular case, what is it about the College of Engineering, specifically, that led to this moment where we're actually reviewing your application. And so this student would need to get a little bit more specific about what Cornell can provide them or has to offer them, or is most exciting to them. And I don't know that this student does a great job at that. I know you guys weren't expecting me to say that. And here's why. There's a lot about the students' ideas, and I love how the student, I'm known at my high school for being a standout because of my wild ideas. Engineering loves wild ideas. They see themselves as deconstructing things to reconstruct things, problem solving, finding the future, in unorthodox ways, perhaps. So that's all great. Like, he definitely sounds like an engineer, but I didn't get a whole lot until the last paragraph. Cornell engineering would prepare me to think outside of the conventional methods, and I think that is exactly what is needed in biomedical engineering. So a couple of things. Try to be more evocative. Try to tell us what we don't already know about the field of study, or about ourselves, or about why we're doing what it is we're doing in terms of biomedical engineering, and the creating of new knowledge and experimentation and research that are happening here. Get specific. Is there a professor? Is there a course? Show us that you have dug in a little bit, and that this is really important to you and this matters to you. So this is one area where this essay, which is, okay, fine, falls a little bit short, in my sort of knowledge of how the engineering committee reads, having spent 3 years on it. Thank you for having me, and I hope you've enjoyed the program, all the programs, all the sessions, not just mine. And if there's anything that I can do or that my office can do to be helpful to you, feel free to reach out to us. You can just email the admissions office, admissions@cornell.edu. And I could probably type that in the chat. I'm still a little slow with technology. Admissions@cornell.edu. I think I spelled everything okay. And in case you forgot my name, awesome. And here, I'll even give you my direct email address if you want to email me. And one final thing I will offer, if any of you guys are seniors and you're planning to apply to Cornell this year, if you want to email me your essays and have me look at them and tell you what I think before the application deadline, the November 16th deadline or the January 2nd deadline, you are welcome to do so. I have placed my email address in the chat window, and I have offered myself up. What have I done? No, I would be happy to do that. I do that for a lot of students. So I would just give you some feedback on what I thought. I probably won't be reading your application, so this is just really a chance for you to get more feedback. I do recommend getting as much feedback as you can before you submit your application. Thank you guys very much, Weva. Ula and all of the other proctors and leaders, have a great time. And good luck, everybody, with all that you have going on, not just admissions, but good luck with what's to come, okay?
Yes, thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.